What if I told you ADHD isn't just an epidemic, it's a partly manufactured one, and that millions of people, maybe even you, are being labeled with a disorder that might not actually fit? For the last 20 years, ADHD has been one of the fastest growing diagnoses in America. Kids, teens, and now adults are being told their brains are broken. And the first line of treatment is usually a prescription. But here's the thing, ADHD is real. But the way we're diagnosing it, the way we're treating it, and the way we're talking about it, that's where the problem lies. In fact, if most Americans walked into their primary care office today and took the standard ADHD paper test, they'd qualify. Why? Because the test questions describe what almost everyone feels in a world of constant distraction, chronic stress, and zero focus. And instead of asking why our brains are struggling, what's happening with our sleep, our diet, our stress, our environment, we hand out stimulants like Adderall, which is basically pharmaceutical grade speed. This is why we need to have this conversation. Because if we keep labeling distraction as disease and pills as the only solution, we're not just misdiagnosing people, we're robbing them of their ability to heal at the root. So today, I'm breaking it all down. What ADHD really is, why diagnoses are exploding, how treatments like Adderall are both powerful and dangerous, and most importantly, the holistic ways you can train your brain to focus without destroying it. I'm Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and after 14 years in hospitals, I saw it firsthand. Our healthcare system doesn't heal you, it manages you. That's why I started A Quick Dose with Dr. Nick. Here, we cut through the noise and talk real health, stress, gut health, brain rewiring, the root causes that actually change your life. So first, what is ADHD really? ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is labeled as a neurodevelopmental condition. The core traits are patterns of inattention, impulsivity, and sometimes hyperactivity that disrupts your daily life. But here's the truth that most people miss. ADHD is less about a lack of attention and more about regulation of attention. ADHD brains can pay attention, in fact, sometimes too much. It's just scattered, unfocused, and pulled toward novelty. That's why someone with ADHD can hyperfocus for hours on video games or art, but can't sit through a 20-minute math assignment. The underlying physiology comes down to brain chemistry and brain wiring. The prefrontal cortex, which controls focus and decision-making, is underactive. So dopamine and norepinephrine, the motivation and alertness chemicals, are dysregulated. The amygdala, your alarm system, and the limbic system, which is involved with emotion and reward, are overactive, making emotions more intense and distractions harder to resist. Neuroimaging studies show that ADHD brains have differences in connectivity. The brakes on impulsivity don't always fire when they should. So yes, ADHD is real. But remember, brains are plastic. They change. And how we label and treat ADHD changes everything. Let's look at the numbers. Around 11.3% of U.S. ages 5 through 17 have been diagnosed with ADHD. That's nearly 7 million kids. Boys are nearly twice as likely to be diagnosed compared to girls. Among adults, estimated 15.5 million people in the U.S. have ADHD. And globally, ADHD rates have steadily risen over the last 2 decades. So why the explosion? It can't be all genetics. Broader awareness and screening, a society addicted to distractions, screens, TikTok, video games, constant dopamine hits, chronic stress, poor diet, lack of sleep, and trauma. Even in children, studies show heavy screen use is strongly linked with ADHD-like symptoms. So yes, ADHD is real, but we're also diagnosing it more and more, and sometimes too loosely. Here's where it gets controversial. How ADHD is diagnosed. In many primary care settings, it often relies on paper questionnaires, checklists filled out by parents, teachers, or patients. Tools like the Connor scale or ADHD rating scales are widely used. But here's the problem. These are subjective. And if you gave these questionnaires to the general public, most people would answer yes to enough questions to qualify. For example, here are some common questions that are included. Do you often lose things necessary for tasks? Do you have trouble sustaining attention? Do you feel restless or fidgety? Do you avoid tasks that require prolonged focus? Does that sound familiar? That could apply to anyone under stress, scrolling on their phone all day, or running on a little bit of sleep. True ADHD diagnosis should be more comprehensive, a detailed clinical interview. Symptoms present across multiple environments: home, work, school. It also needs to include an objective neurocognitive test, ruling out mimics like trauma, sleep disorders, thyroid imbalance, or even nutrient deficiencies. But too often, people are diagnosed off a checklist and a 10-minute doctor visit, which means overdiagnosis is a very real problem. Now, let's step away from the science for a second. What does ADHD actually look like in everyday life? ADHD isn't just being distracted. It's living in a constant tug of war with your own brain. One moment, you can hyper focus for hours on the thing you love, building, drawing, gaming, creating, and the rest of the world disappears. But when it comes to the stuff that feels boring, starting it feels like climbing a mountain. Deadlines? People with ADHD might procrastinate for weeks, then turn around and crush a project in one all nighter that blows everyone away. Conversations? They might interrupt you, not to be rude, but because their brain is racing 3 steps ahead and the words can't stay inside. And emotions? They don't come with a dimmer switch. Rejection, frustration, even joy. It all feels like the volume is stuck on max. Look at their desk and it might seem like straight chaos. But out of that chaos often comes incredible creativity. This is ADHD in real life. Not lazy, not broken, not dumb, just wired differently. With challenges, yes, but also with brilliance most people will never see coming. All right, let's get real about treatment. The number one go to for ADHD, it's stimulant medication. And the king of that hill is Adderall. Here's what most people don't realize: Adderall isn't just a focused pill, it's literally an amphetamine salt. Yes, amphetamine, the chemical cousin of meth. Now, in the short term, it does work. It floods your brain with dopamine and norepinephrine. You feel locked in, dialed up, and focused. It's like strapping a rocket booster onto your brain. But here's the dark side: that rocket fuel comes with a price. Adderall is one of the most abused prescription drugs in America. 1 in every 5 college students admit to using it, not for ADHD, but to pull an all-nighter, cram for exams, or to party longer. And the side effects hit quick: anxiety, insomnia, loss of appetite, a pounding heart. And here's where it gets scary: your body builds tolerance. That means the same dose stops working over time. So instead of 2 pills a day, you might find yourself needing 3, then 4, just to feel the same effect. That's how dependence sneaks in. And when you don't have it, the crash is brutal: fatigue, brain fog, depression. Some people describe it as their brain turning into cement. It's not just feeling off, it's your brain screaming for dopamine it can no longer make on its own. Long term Adderall rewires your reward system. Without it, you can't even feel normal. And many people start mixing it with alcohol, weed, or sedatives just to soften the crash. A very dangerous and toxic cycle. And here's the kicker: Adderall doesn't fix ADHD, it just masks it. The wiring differences, the lifestyle factors, the root causes, they're still there. And often, when the pills stop, the problems come back and worse than ever before. Yes, for some people, Adderall feels life changing. But at what cost? Why is this our first line default instead of the last resort? Because here's the truth: if the solution to focus is turning on an entire generation into speed users, then maybe we're asking the wrong question. Let's start with the question that everyone asks: can ADHD be cured? The short answer is ADHD isn't something you simply cure, like an infection. It's a difference in the brain wiring. But here's the hopeful truth: symptoms can improve dramatically, and in some cases, people even go into remission. Long term studies show that for many children diagnosed with ADHD, symptoms lessen or shift as they grow into adulthood. The brain is plastic, meaning it can rewire. One of the most exciting areas of research is mindfulness. A 2019 meta analysis found that mindfulness training significantly reduced core ADHD symptoms like inattention and impulsivity, and improved emotional regulation. Why? Because mindfulness strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the very area that the ADHD individuals struggle from, and helps quiet the overactive stress circuits. So, what can you do beyond stimulants? Let's start with diet. Cut processed sugars, artificial dyes, and additives. Boost protein, omega 3s, zinc, magnesium, and B vitamins. 2. Exercise. Short breaks of movement every 60 to 90 minutes reset focus and boost brain chemicals like BDNF, which is your brain derived neurotrophic factor, the fertilizer for your neurons. 3. Meditation and mindfulness. Just 10 minutes a day can help strengthen focus pathways and reduce distractibility. 4. Herbs and nutrients. Ginseng, bacopa, and omega 3s all show evidence for supporting ADHD brains. 5. Sleep. A regulated sleep cycle is foundational for attention and emotional control. Without it, nothing else sticks. 6. Structured systems. Time blocking, timers, and accountability partners give ADHD brains the scaffolding they need to thrive. These tools don't just mask symptoms, they help retrain the brain, giving it a chance to rewire and unlock the strengths inside of an ADHD mind. Here's a part no one tells you. ADHD brains are not broken, they're built for brilliance. Yes, ADHD comes with struggles, distractibility, impulsivity, procrastination, but ADHD brains are also wired for creativity, novelty, and innovation. They can hyperfocus so deeply that when passion strikes, they outperform almost everyone. They adapt quickly to chaos. They connect ideas in ways linear thinkers cannot. Some of the greatest entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators in history thrive because of ADHD like wiring. The truth is, ADHD isn't a deficit in attention, it's a difference in attention regulation. It's not less attention, it's attention spread too wide. And with training, that wide focus can actually become a superpower. The real question isn't how do we make ADHD brains normal? The real question is how do we create environments where ADHD brains can thrive? So here's the bottom line. ADHD is real, but we are overdiagnosing it. We're pushing pills as the first solution, and we're ignoring the deeper truth. ADHD brains are adaptable, trainable, and even brilliant when given the right tools. If you or your child has ADHD, don't just settle for prescriptions. Look deeper, build habits, use movement, nutrition, and mindfulness to rewire the brain because you're not broken. You're rewiring. This has been a quick dose with Dr. Nick. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs a fresh perspective on ADHD. Until next time, protect your brain, protect your peace, and train your brain.